Ruchim Aboim B'Shem Hashem, B'Shem Egen Shir Teremas is Boston. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. Ruchim Aboim to everyone who came here in person, to everyone who joining on the phone, as a snoshim, and whoever's watching. Ruchim Aboim. To have the great Zchus sponsoring a shir, call Egen Shir Teres 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Tonight we have the cover to have with us once again Rabbi Yosef Sayagh Shlita, Menahel Igud of Bodkei Shatnez, International Bodkei Shatnez, to speak on new updates and new Shatnez alerts, new Shatnez that were found in clothing in recent times. We're covered to call Rabbi Sayagh for tonight's shir.
So firstly, we'd like to thank Rabbi Bold, Irgun Shiurei Torah, for arranging the shir, which is so important. Shatnez is something which is negea to us on a daily basis. After food that we eat, it's clothing that we wear, that we come to contact the entire day. And that's something that we need to know a lot about in order to make sure that we're going to be able to keep this mitzvah properly. As we're going to see throughout the presentation today, how it's not so easy to be able to be mekayim this mitzvah to the fullest extent. I'm going to be repeating things that I've said in the past, because I've realized saying something once is not necessarily enough. It has to be repeated again and again. I'm going to begin with an incident that happened recently. I was in the Igud in Edison, New Jersey. I really had to get back to Lakewood, but there wasn't enough time to be able to get back to Lakewood, to be able to daven mincha before Shkia. So I waited. Mincha began, and then this person comes to daven in front of me, and he was wearing a jacket which looked problematic, which during the course of the shir today you will know and you will understand yourselves what type of materials are more questionable. But the jacket that this person was wearing looked very questionable. So I waited till he finished davening, and I asked if I could see the label of his jacket, and on the label it said wool and linen. This person didn't even read the label. And then, a few weeks later, he dropped off at one of my locations another jacket, which was also wool and linen. That's one incident. And this past winter, many children were wearing this sweater. This is a Zara sweater that actually says on the label it's made of wool and linen. It has 52% wool, 17% linen. The label wasn't read, so it was actually worn. And there was many such cases that we had this past winter. So I see that it's nice to talk about chidushim, get involved in more intricate details, but the basics have to be reviewed. So before we begin, I would like to say over an Oid Yosef Chai from the Ben Ish Chai in this week's parasha. This is Parashas Chukas. Parashas Chukas is the parasha of the Chukim. That's why it's appropriate that we're speaking about Shatnez, which is a chayk in this week's parasha. But the Ben Ish Chai asks a question. He says, we know that chukim is beli tam, doesn't have a reason. And if you look through the parasha in this week's parasha by Paraduma, Rashi brings reasons. So what does it mean a chayk is something that doesn't have a reason? So he explains every pasuk, every mitzvah can be interpreted in 4 different ways. Pshat, drush, remez, soid. The Rosh Hashanah is Pardes. Pardes stands for Pshat, Drush, Remez, and Said, which means every pasuk can be translated simply, Pshat. It's simple meaning. Drush is the Medrash. Remez is the Gematria. Said is the Zaya, Al-Pi Kabbalah. So everything can be translated in 4 different ways. Whenever you find a reason for a chayk, it may be Al-Pi Drush, maybe a Medrash, maybe Remez, it may be Said. But it's not going to be Al-Pi Pshat. It won't be a simple meaning. So even though may hear from me different reasons for the mitzvah of Shatnez, but those will be reasons Al-Pi Pshat or Al-Pi Said or Al-Pi Remez. So the halachos of Shatnez are found starting in Yeridei Siman Reish Sadiches. It goes till Siman Dalet Shin. A way to remember where these halachos are found is we know there's a medrash. The medrash gives the reason for the mitzvah of Shatnez. He says, "Vayave Kain mipri ha'adama." Kain brought from the fruits of the earth, which Rashi says was zera pishtan, was flax seeds. His carbon wasn't accepted. Hevel, his brother, brought mibchayres Sinai from the best of his sheep, and his carbon was accepted. Cain was jealous. Cain killed his brother. So the Medrash says this is the reason for the mitzvah of Shatnez. The Torah doesn't want us to mix the 2 carbonas together. Mix the carbon of Cain with the carbon of Hevel. We don't mix these 2 carbonas together. So remembering this reason also helps you remember which 2 things make Shatnez, which is wool and linen. And also helps you remember where the halachos of Shatnez is. It's in Yeridei Siman Reish Sadiches, which makes the word Retzach. It goes till Siman Dalet Shin, which is Rosh Hashanah Shvichas Damim. So the Chaber was put the halachos of Shatnez dafka between these simonim to be meramez to the reason brought down in the Medrash. So the first halacha says what creates the issa of Shatnez is only sheep's wool, tzemer, rechelim, and pishtam. Those are the only things. There's many hair fibers that are used in clothing today, as you'll see if you start reading the labels. But the only type of hair that's going to create the issa of Shatnez is sheep's wool. Now, sheep's wool includes rams or lamb's wool. Now, if it says merino wool is just the name of the Australian sheep, and that's also included. There's many species of sheep, but all species of sheep can create the issa of Shatnez. And that's also in Pishtan. Pishtan is something that grows. This is a picture of the linen plant. It's something that grows from the ground, and it's from the stalk where they actually produce the linen fiber. I have here some stalks of. These are the stalks of linen, and it's from these stalks that they produce the linen fiber. So the Shulchan Aruch says, if you take linen and you mix it with other hair fibers such as camel hair, rabbit hair, goat's hair, all those will not create the issa of Shatnez. What type of goat's hair do we use? So we use cashmere, we use mohair. These are different types of goats. Does cashmere have to be checked? So if it's cashmere and linen, that's perfectly okay. If it's mohair and linen, it's perfectly okay. But what we have to make sure that it's entirely cashmere or entirely mohair. Many times they would mix cashmere with sheep's wool and mohair with sheep's wool. The reason why they would do that is because a cashmere goat produces 2 ounces to 4 ounces of hair an entire year. It's the difference between the male and the female. So there's very little cashmere. And something that's authentic cashmere would cost in the range of 800 to 1,000 to 2,000 and up, if it's pure cashmere. We're buying cashmere clothing for very inexpensive, and the reason for that is because they're allowed to call wool fibers that have the same feel as cashmere, they're allowed to call that cashmere. So therefore, you may have something which is labeled cashmere, but really it may be sheep's wool, which has the same feel as cashmere, so they're allowed to call that. So therefore, if something has an item that's made of cashmere and linen, before he can wear it, he has to make sure that it's real cashmere and there's no wool blended in it. The Shulchan Aruch continues and says that canvas is allowed with tzemer. Canvas is hemp. Hemp is something that was always illegal in this country, because from the leaves of the hemp plant, that's where they produced marijuana. But now they're growing different species of hemp which don't have the marijuana leaves. And now you're seeing hemp on the markets. If you start reading the labels, you'll be surprised. You'll start seeing things actually made of hemp, and sometimes hemp and wool. But hemp and wool, the Shulchan Aruch says, is okay. It's not a problem of Shatnez. But I want to speak out. There is a Shitas Harishainim, which the Shitas Harishainim say that hemp and wool is Shatnez. Because the Gemara asks in Zvachim and in Yuma and other Masechtas, the Gemara asks, how do we know that when the Torah says bad, base daled, bad, it's referring to linen? So the Gemara says, because dava ha'oile bad bevad. Each seed produces one stalk. Bad means singular. The way the linen grows, it grows in a singular fashion. So the Tosfos asks, what we know as linen today, that's not the way it grows. Each seed produces many stalks. So therefore, the Rabbeinu Ephraim in Tosfos says, when the Torah says pishton, it's referring to hemp. I have a hemp over here. This is hemp. Now, the Beis Shlomo speaks out. When the Torah, the Rabbeinu Ephraim is not excluding pishton. Of course, it means pishton also, linen, but it also includes hemp. It's all of the same family. And what the Gemara is saying, as long as in the family you have one of its species, which one seed produces one stalk, then that's enough. So now we know this is the family which creates Shatnez. So it would be linen and hemp. And the Beis Shlomo brings a raya that hemp is pishton, because the pasuk we read in the Haftarah of Parashat Shalach, it says "Vatitmenem bepishtei ha'etz." Rochav hazayna hid Kalev and Pinchas. She hid them bepishtei ha'etz, with pishton, and the pasuk calls it eitz, a piece of wood. Looking at linen is not a piece of wood. Linen is a thin stalk. So from here, the Beis Shlomo brings a raya that when the Torah says pishton, it's referring to hemp. So therefore, if something has hemp and wool, which is common today, there's a lot of things that are made, you can find things made of hemp and wool. According to the Shulchan Aruch, that would be okay. However, the Beis Shlomo says a Yirei Shamayim should be machmir and not wear something made of hemp and wool to be chayshish for the shita of the Rabbeinu Ephraim. So the first step in making sure that one doesn't wear Shatnez is simply reading the labels. And you would think finding that it says wool and linen on the label is very seldom. I would say once a week, once every 2 weeks at my laboratory, somebody's bringing in a garment that actually says wool and linen. Now it could be a sweater, it could be a pants, it could be a jacket, it could be anything. I have here sweater. This is a black sweater. Doesn't look like there's any problem to it. But if you're reading the label says it's made of 38% wool, 20% linen. It says it on the label. So here you have something which is so unassuming, and here it is, it's made of wool and linen. Now, the next part of the presentation, I would like to teach you how to be able to identify what type of garments are more problematic. So in order to explain that, I have to discuss another sif in Shulchan Aruch, which is Siman Shin Sif Aleph, where the Shulchan Aruch discusses Shua, Tavi, and Nuz. The word Shatnez is broken down into 3 words. The Shin Ayin makes the word Shua, the Tes makes the word Tavi, the Nun Zayin makes the word Nuz. The translation of these 3 words, Shua means combing, Tavi is spinning, Nuz is weaving, and it has other translations too. So let me demonstrate to you the combing and the spinning. So I'm going to take over here some raw wool. As it's shorn off the sheep's back, it's all knotted, it's all entangled. Something has to be done to this wool in order that it should be ready to be spun into a nice thread. So what has to be done, it has to be combed. So we're going to take this wooden comb, which has metal teeth, going to attach this wool fibers to the teeth of this comb. And then with a second comb, I'm going to actually comb it. Now this, what I'm doing right now, this is shua. Shua means combing. Combing means straightening out the fibers. Doing this on Shabbos is the Av Melacha of Hamenapetz. Hamenapetz means taking the locks of hair and pulling them apart. It's either biyad or bekli. Then we remove the fibers from the combs. Now we have what looks like a tongue. That's why the Mishnah in Elu Metzias calls it L'shoinais Shel Argamon. You find tongues of purple wool. Why is it called a tongue? Because after it's combed, it looks like a tongue. So we're going to take this tongue of wool, attach it to this hook on this spindle. A spindle is a stick which has a weight on it, a hook on top. So here we're going to attach this tongue to this hook, and as it falls downwards, it twists and ties all the fibers, creating a yarn, creating a thread. So this is the middle letter of the word Shatnez, which is Tes, which stands for Tavi. So right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm spinning. Spinning means taking the hairs, twisting them together, creating a yarn. Now, Nuz has a few translations. One type of the word Nuz is shazur. This is a word that you see in Parshas Truma, Parshas Tetzaveh. The word mashza. Mashza means plying. What exactly is plying, and what is the purpose of plying? Because something has to be done to this thread, that this thread should stay the way it is and not unravel. Eventually, this thread is going to unravel, untwist. So something has to be done to this thread that it should stay the way it is. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove this thread from the spindle. I'm going to tie the two ends. Now I have this thread that I spun. Now I'm going to spin it anti-clockwise. in the opposite direction. See here, I'm spinning it in the opposite direction that it was spun before. Now I'm creating what's called a 2-ply yarn, a chut kafel. And that's what shazur means. Shazur means you make it from a 1-ply to a 2-ply. And that's how the Rabbeinu Tam teaches the word nuz. Nuz means a chut kafel. So, according to the Rabbeinu Tam, in order to create Shatnez de'oraisa, you take a 2-ply yarn of wool, and you take a 2-ply yarn of pishtan. Yachtav, you put the two together. Doesn't make a difference how you put the two together. You have created Shatnez mid'oraisa. Now, so understanding this, now it's not so difficult to have something that is Shatnez de'oraisa. Many times, people will tell you, no, it's only Shatnez de'Rabbanan. It's not it's a davar she'enei matzui. It's something that cannot be found. It's rarely found, so you don't have to be chayshish, so you don't have to check. You have all types of reasonings that people come up with. But now that I demonstrated to you what is Shatnez de'oraisa according to the Rabbeinu Tam, which Rav Rishonim, Rav Poskim go with Rabbeinu Tam. So now I'm going to show you in clothing that we have today how we have this type of Shatnez. So let me show you firstly one which is clearer. Here's a wool vest where they have this cord attached to it for decorative purposes. Now, even though it's only for decorative purpose, and it doesn't have to be there, but that's enough to make it Shatnez. It doesn't have to have a purpose. It doesn't have to give you warmth. It doesn't have to give you chimum. As long as it's a part of the beged, then that's enough to make the whole beged oseh. So here you have this cord, which happens to be linen. This is a 2-ply. I'm going to unravel it, and as I unravel it, you can see it's 2 threads twisted together. So here you have a chut shazur of pishtan, which is attached to this woolen beged, which is chutim shazurim of tzemeh. So here you have Shatnez de'oraisa. So a safety pin is also Shatnez de'oraisa because it's shtei tchivos. It goes in and out. As long as it goes in and out, that's considered Shatnez. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch speaks that out clearly. Now, another example, here you have, every winter we have a bunch of these children's coats. It's a navy coat sold by Zara, Old Navy, Brooks Brothers. It's a navy coat where the chutim are chutim shazurim, and the toggle buttons are held with a linen cord, which this cord is made up of multiple threads. So here again, you have Shatnez de'oraisa according to Rav Poskim. Sweaters, the chashash that we have in sweaters is the same thing. When the sweater is brought into the laboratory for Shatnez testing, that's what we look for. We look for in the joints of the sweaters, we look for minute threads of linen, which we find them in any joints of the sweater. There's every sweater has an average of 10 joints. So we check at every joint in the sweater, and we look for remnants of linen thread. And when we find those linen threads, they are typically a 2-ply, and all sweaters are 2-ply yarns. So every sweater has a chashash of Shatnez de'oraisa. Now Rashi learns differently. Rashi says in order to create Shatnez de'oraisa, the wool and the linen has to be mixed from the very beginning. The shua has to be done to the linen and to the wool. And here's where you're going to see what we call a linen look fabric, what's a questionable fabric. And when you see that fabric, that's going to raise a red flag, and that's going to tell you this has to be checked before it could be worn. So the thread that we made previously was this. This is a thread which has what's called even thicknesses. From one end to the other, it's the same thickness. Now we're going to take wool and linen, and we're going to create a thread which is made of wool and linen. Now, the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Dalet Shin says, it's muter la seisam ula kaiman. Shatnez, one is allowed to klei begodim, muter la seisam. One is allowed to make shatnez. Ve'enam asurim elo belevisha. It's only issa of leisilbash. There's no issa of leisivashel. So here we're going to take some wool and some linen, and we're going to create a yarn that's made of wool and linen. So here I have wool. So Rashi says, in order to create Shatnez Deraisa, one has to comb the wool and the linen together. The shua, which is what I'm doing right now, has to be done to the wool and to the linen together. And then the tvia, the spinning, is done from this mixture. So now you're going to see what a wool and linen thread looks like. So here we're going to spin from this mixture a thread that the actual thread is going to be made of wool and linen. Now, being that linen is hard and wool is soft, so when you mix something that's hard together with something that's soft, that's going to create a thread of uneven thicknesses. You see the thread that I just produced over here? Some parts of it is very thin, other parts is enlarged. The enlarged areas are called slubs. So it's a thread that has unevenness to it, has enlarged areas, has slubs. This is typically what will happen when you make a thread made of wool and linen. So Rashi says, the shua is, the wool and linen has to be combed, then spun, and nuz Rashi teaches is ariga. You take these threads, you weave them, you create a fabric made of these threads. So what will a fabric made of these threads appear? So I bring this jacket shows you very clearly what it would look like. Here you have a jacket which has all these white slubs all over it. So seeing something like this could be Shatnez Deraisa according to Shitas Rashi. And of course according to the other Rishonim. And this indeed is wool and linen. This is made of wool and linen. And this is the jacket that I saw this person wearing in Edison. He was wearing a jacket similar to this. So now you can see now you've learned what type of fabrics are more problematic and which types of fabrics are more suspect of being Shatnez. Now the Shulchan Aruch doesn't like the Rabbeinu Tam, doesn't paskin like Rashi, he paskins like the Rambam. The Rambam says, in order to create Shatnez, you do not need to have Shua, Tovi, and Nuz. You do not need to have all three together. Each one individually can create Shatnez Deraisa. And this is the Lashon of the Mechaba. Kiven shenischabe hatzeme im hapishtan. Sad chibur ba'olam. Once wool and linen has been connected in any way or any form, osa mishum kelaim, it has become osa. He gives an example. Ketzad. Sema upishtim shetofon zeh im zeh. You took wool and linen and you combed them. You mixed them. Very well. V'sho oisam, then you combed them. V'oso mehem levodim, and they made what's called levodim. Levodim is a felted fabric. Most fabrics are a weave. They have threads going in two different directions, the warp and the weft. Felt is made up of fibers pressed together. It's not made of threads, it's just raw fibers pressed together. So if you took wool and linen and you mixed them together, you combed them, and then you pressed them and you made a felt fabric made of wool and linen, so according to Rashi and the Beinu Tam, that would only be Shatnez derabanan. According to the Rambam will hold it's Shatnez deraisa, because you don't need to have shua, tovi, and nuz. Shua by itself will already create the issa of Shatnez. An example of this type of Shatnez, I have here a Russian hat, which these Russian hats is, a lot of them have Shatnez. So, even though this is fur, this is rabbit fur or other animal, so one would think it doesn't have to be checked. However, the reason why it has to be checked, because there's something inside. And something has to be put inside this hat in order that it shall retain its shape. So here when it's brought into the Shatnez laboratory, we open it up and we look inside. So here in the ears of this hat, I found a felt fabric, which this felt fabric is made of wool and linen. So here you have Shatnez deraisa according to the Rambam, in things that we have. And what's upsetting about this is a lot of people who travel to Europe, to the Mekemes HaKadoshim, especially in the winter, they would treat themselves and buy themselves this fur hat, and they may even wear it without checking it, not knowing that they could have Shatnez, and in truth, most of these hats do have Shatnez. And the Rambam says Tovi by itself is Shatnez, and Nuz, the Rambam teaches according to the Taz, is Chibur. So now we have a third taich of the word Nuz. The Rabbeinu Tam says it's Shozur, Rashi says Zariga, and the Rambam says Nuz is Chibur, which means any attachment of wool and linen, that is Nuz. So according to the Rambam, most cases could be Shatnez deraisa, which makes Shatnez, gives it a whole different look. Because now we're not looking at Shatnez derabanan, we're looking at Shatnez deraisa. Okay. Now we'd like to talk about a dress that a lot of them were sold this past summer. A lot of people purchased them. This is a Zara dress, which said on the label wool. Said on the label linen. But the belt has wool. So here you have a belt. Where is the wool? The back of the belt has wool. So now the question, is this Shatnez or not? What is the exact status of this dress? So for this we have to learn, we're going to start with a Yerushalmi, and then just going to find the Lashon of the Yerushalmi. Yes. The Yerushalmi says like this, Umayde Reb Ila. Reb Ila agrees, the Yilbash Dardasin de Ama al Gaba Dardasin de Kitan de Osa. The Eloi Sholach Ilo Le Sholach Ar'aya. So we'll explain. Rabbi Ila agrees that wearing a wool garment over a linen garment is Osa. What's the reason? The Eloi Sholach Ilo Le Sholach Ar'aya. So the machlekes, the Beis Yosef and the Darkei Moshe, how to learn this Yerushalmi. The Beis Yosef says, the Eloi Sholach Ilo Le Sholach Ar'aya means that when you take off the upper one, it takes off the bottom one with it. For example, if one is wearing two socks, the top one is linen, the inner one is wool. When you try to take off your socks, when you try to take off the upper one, the inner one also comes off with it. So that's how the Beis Yosef learns Pshat in the Yerushalmi. Therefore, wearing a jacket that's wool on top of a linen shirt would be okay. Because when you take off your jacket, your shirt is not coming with it. So that's not considered a chibur of tzema upishtim. Because again, Shatnez is wool and linen attached together. It has to be attached somewhat. The Beis Yosef says that if you take off the one on top, it's going to bring the one underneath with it. That's considered a chibur. That's considered an attachment of wool and linen. But if you take off your jacket, it's not taking off your shirt, so that wearing a jacket over a shirt, that's not considered a chibur of tzema upishtim. But the Darkei Moshe, the Ramah doesn't learn that way. He says, since you cannot remove your shirt, only if you first remove your jacket, so then the jacket is trapping the shirt, so that's considered a chibur of tzema upishtim. That's the Eloi Sholach Ilo. If you're not going to take off the outer garment, Lo Sholach Ar'aya, you won't be able to take off the one underneath. So then it's considered a chibur of tzema upishtim. So according to the Ramah, one is not allowed to wear two garments, a beged tzema and a beged pishtim together. One is not allowed to wear a linen shirt underneath a wool jacket, or wear a wool sweater on top of a linen shirt. And this is very common, especially this season. There's a lot of linen clothing. So now it's the peak of the summer, but the beginning of the Pesach time or Sukkot time, when people are still wearing linen and it gets a little chilly, you would want to wear a sweater on top or a coat. Or it's for your child is wearing a linen outfit and it's getting a little cold, so you want to put a coat on him. So here you have a problem of the Ramah, which you're not allowed to wear two garments, one that is wool, one that is linen. Now wearing a linen pants with a wool shirt, that's okay, because one is not trapping the other. Even though they're touching doesn't create the issa. What creates the issa of Shatnez is a chibur of tzema upishtim. Now, there was somebody who for many, many years told people that you're allowed to wear a linen shirt underneath a wool jacket. And he said the reason is it's not considered trapped. Why? Because you can easily remove the one underneath without having to remove the one on top entirely. Which means if you remove one sleeve at a time, then you can do it. For example, I take off my jacket from one sleeve, one arm, then I take off my shirt, then I put on the jacket, and then I do the same thing to the other side. So that's called, I can remove efshel lifshay tatachtaina beli lifshay talyayna. Now why did he think that's okay? Because the Ramah has a stira. The Rambam says, right. So the Rambam says, Beis Asa Lilbaish. One is not allowed to wear Beis Bodkei Sheikayim. 2 pairs of pants, Echad shel Pishtan ve'echad shel Tzemeh, one made of linen, one made of wool, Zu al Zu, one on top of the other. Why? Because it's impossible to remove the one underneath while you're wearing the one on top. That's right. Since you cannot remove the shirt only after removing the jacket, so that's why it's considered a chibur of tzemeh upishtan. But the Ramah continues, "V'loi dami lebeis chalukim zu al zu." But this is not similar to 2 shirts. The efshel lifshet hatachtin b'loi ha'elyain. If you're wearing 2 shirts, there you can remove the one underneath the tachtin without having to remove the one on top. So what does that mean? What's the difference between 2 pairs of pants and 2 shirts? So that's why somebody wanted to say, because you can remove 1 sleeve at a time. But the Shach says no. The Shach says what it means is, it's talking about shirts that are very baggy, are very wide. So what you can do is you can slip your arms out of both sleeves and you can put your arms against your body, and then the inner one can be pulled out. And that's called, you're removing the one underneath while you're wearing the one on top. As opposed to taking off one sleeve and leaving it to hang on one shoulder, that's not called still wearing the one on top, because you've almost taken off the one on top entirely. It would be considered you're still wearing the one on top when you remove your arms from both sleeves and you have your arms against your body, so then it's still considered you're wearing the one on top, and then it's considered that you're able to pull out the one underneath while you're wearing the one on top. Okay, so before a person paskins, he really has to see the Shulchan Aruch, see the Neisei Kelim, and then Chas v'Sholom, he won't be mashal people. So now, getting back to this dress. Here's a linen dress, and you have the wool belt. Now, since the belt is attached with belt loops, so it's impossible to take off the dress while you're wearing the belt. So this is beged al gabe beged, and it's ef shelivshet hatachtoina b'lo halyena. So therefore, this is a problem of beged al gabe beged. Now, what would be if you take off the belt loops? Just take off the belt loops, so then you can slip out the dress while you're wearing the belt. Would that be okay? Okay, so let's learn the beginning of the Mechaber. The Mechaber, Sif Dalet, says, Mutter lilbaish chaluk shel tzem al gabe chaluk shel pishtan. Here the Mechaber paskins, like he says in the Darkei Moshe, like he says in the Beis Yosef, that one is allowed to wear one garment, which is of wool, on top of a garment that's linen, because he held that's not a problem. Only if it's 2 socks, then it's going to be a problem. But the Mechaber says more than that. Ulekashram yachad. You're allowed to tie them together. Even though you can't remove them without untying the knot. So when you read the Mechaber seems to be saying you're wearing a wool garment on top of a linen garment, and there's a strap coming out from the wool garment and a strap coming out from the linen garment, and you're tying the two together with a double knot. That would be okay. But how could that be? Here you're taking wool and linen and you're knotting them together. That it can't be that the Mechaber is saying that. So the Taz explains what the Mechaber is not talking about knotting and tying the wool and linen together. The Mechaber is talking about wearing a belt. You're wearing a wool garment and a linen garment. And then you're taking a belt and you're wrapping it around both garments, and you're knotting the belt, kesher shel kayama. And now it's on, the belt is holding the two garments so tight that you can only remove the wool and linen garments only if you unknot the belt. Only if you untie the belt. Even if that's the case, the Mechaber says it's okay. But then the Mechaber brings v'yesh oisrim. There's some people who's asa b'kesher shel kayama. If you wear a belt, you're wearing a wool garment and a linen garment, and you're wearing a belt which is knotted with a double knot, and it's impossible to take off the garments only if you first untie the knot of the belt, then there's a Rabbeinu Yoina, which the Rabbeinu Yoina says it's also. So now, if this would be the case, where you take the belt and you can't remove the belt is on so tight that it's impossible to remove the dress, only if you first undo the belt, then it's a problem. Then there's a shita in the Mechaber that it would be a problem. Now the question is this called a kesher shel kayama? So Reuben Feinstein told me that the belt is a kesher shel kayama. Why? Because the metal tongue is one knot, and then you thread it through the loop, that's considered a second knot. So this is kesher al gabe kesher. So a belt would be a kesher shel kayama. So if it wouldn't have the belt loops, and you wouldn't be able to remove the dress while it's being worn, only if you untie the belt first, then there's a daya in the Mechaber that would say it's a problem. Now, what would be the mekair of this yesh oisrim? So it's very interesting because there's a Yalkut Shemaini. The Yalkut Shemaini says in Parashat Sav, Omar Rabbi Simain, Kishem Shakarbonis Mechaprim. Just like the Karbonis are Mechaper, Kach Habegodim Mechaprim. So too, the clothing of the Kohen Gadol was also Mechaper. So the Yalkut explains what each thing was Mechaper for. So the Medrash, the Yalkut says, Ksaynes Mechaper al Levushe Kilayim. The Ksaynes was Mechaper for people that wore Shatnez. Kemodat Omar v'osale Ksaynes Pasim. So the question is, the Chassam Sofer asks, the Ksaynes was made of linen. The Ksaynes wasn't made of Shatnez. They should have said what is Mechaper for Levushe Kilayim should be the ephod, the avnate, the chayshen that were made of Shatnez. So why is the Yalkut saying that it's the Ksaynes is? So he explains that the Yalkut is going with the shita that begodim koshim is not asa. There's a shita that holds begodim, hard clothing, stiff materials is mutter. You're allowed to wear it because it's not machamim. We don't paskin that way. But there's such a shita. So the Yalkut goes, Reb Simain holds that way. So therefore the chayshen and the ephod, since it had chutei zahav, it was made of, together with all the wool, it had chutei zahav, it had gold strips in it, so that made it koshim. So therefore, there was no issa shatnez on the chayshen, the ephod. So what was the shatnez? So he explains the shatnez was because the ksaynes was linen. On top of that, you wore the me'il, which was wool. So it was beged al gabe beged, and it was the chayshev ha'ephod, which held it all together, and it was impossible to remove because of the gartel that was around it. The chagura, so that was the shatnez of the Kohen Gadol. And he says that this is the mekayr for this yesh oisrim, which is the Rabbeinu Yonah that held it would be asa. So here you have one dress that was sold this past summer, which is mamish negeh to this sif in Shulchan Aruch. So now we have a few more minutes. We're going to show you different things that we found recently. At the end of Siman Shin Aleph, the Mechaber speaks out different things, which different types of clothing, which is mutter or asa. So he mentions tziltzilim ketanim, she'oisim oisam ha'am bebeis yad shalahem litzrer b'hem mois oitavlin. You have little wallets that people hang from their arms or their wrists, and they put money inside, or they put spices inside. So those things are not hare elu mutarim, so they don't have a problem of shatnez. So the question is, I have here a pocketbook, which somebody bought me recently. It's a pocketbook that's fabric on the outside. That's why they brought it in for shatnez testing. And it really is acrylic and wool, and the lining on the inside is linen. So here you have shatnez. So some want to say, because of what it says here in the Mechaber, about these small wallets that they use to carry money, and the Mechaber says that's not a problem, so therefore this shouldn't be a problem. However, there's a Mishnah Brura which brings a Prima Godim in Hilchas Talis and Hilchas Tfilin, which said the Tikshel Talis and the Tikshel Tfilin is not allowed to be shatnez. So the question is, do you compare this to the Tikshel Talis or the Tikshel Tfilin? Or do you compare this to the Tziltzilim Ketanim mentioned here in the Mechaber? So I've asked different poskim, and I've got different sokim over the years. Another thing that says over here is you have tzitz shel oir oy meshi. You have like a headband made of leather or silk, shetolo bem chutei tzemeh v'chutei pishton, and they attach to it threads of wool and threads of linen. Meduldalim al pnei ha'adam, they're hanging down in front of the face of the person. The purpose of it is kedei la'afriach hazvuvim, in order to get rid of the flies. Ein by mishum kelayim she'ein derech chimum bekach. So some people want to say that hair pieces shouldn't be a problem of shatnez, based on what the Mechaber just says over here. But it's a mistake. Why? Because the case over here, tzitz shel oir oy meshi, is talking about a band that's made of leather or silk, and attached to it is you have wool threads and linen threads. Then the Mechaber says it's okay. So the Chaim Kanievsky is medayik. However, if the actual band would be made of wool and linen, of course that would be a problem of shatnez. It's only because the case over here is that it's made of leather or silk, that's why the Mechaber is saying it's okay. The threads attached to it are not going to make it shatnez. But if the band itself is made of wool and linen, that could be a problem. So let me show you some hair pieces that I had that are shatnez. Here I have a hair band which is made of wool and linen. And here's a bow, that this bow also has wool and linen in it. So here you have hair pieces, which could also be Shatnez. Also, two weeks ago, this woman brings me a tichel that she bought. This tichel has a linen look to it. That's why she brought it in. And it has plenty of linen in it. And we also found some wool inside this too. It has a clip on it. So there's another point over here. It was chutim that was dangling from this area. Here it's all one piece. It's like the band itself. Okay. So we'll just end off with the Chachmas Adam is Messiah Hilchas Shatnez, and he says Hazohir b'kelayim yiske lilboish bigdei yesha. One who is careful not to wear Shatnez will be zeicha to wear bigdei yesha. So I've asked, what exactly is bigdei yesha? So I saw the Baba Verov, after the Second World War here in America, spoke to his Hasidim, and he was encouraging them to continue to wear the Chassidish Malbushim. And he brought the pasuk, Sois osis bashem, togel nafshi be'elekai, ki hilbishani bigdei yesha. And he translated, bigdei yesha means clothing that will bring you Yeshuas. And he told everybody to continue wearing the Chassidish Malbushim, and he guaranteed them that it'll only bring them Yeshuas. So I took that word and I'm using it for the Chachmas Adam. The Chachmas Adam says, Hazoy shaloi lilbesh klein, one who's careful not to wear Shatnez, Yizke lilbesh bigdei yesha, he will be zeicha to wear bigdei yesha. So by making sure your clothing don't have Shatnez, what you're doing is you're transforming your clothing into clothing that can bring you Yeshuas. Which is, we all look for segulas and for different things. Just by keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs, that in itself brings us everything that we need. In the schus of learning about the mitzvah today, Hashem should answer all our tefillas, and we should all be zeich to see the Mashiach and the Bnei Beis HaMikdash b'karov mamash.
Shem Irgen Shir Termas is possible like to give big extra character by Sayagh for tonight's shir. To have the great schus of sponsoring one as a shiurim, call Irgen Shir Ter at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Chananya ben Akash Yom Rotzak Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakis Es Yisrael L'Fikach Hirbelem Torah Mitzvah Shenema L'Noi Chafetz L'Man Sidkoi Yagdul Torah V'Yader.